And I should begin with you, Barrister Ghana. Please talk to us. You've been listening.
Yes, comrade, it's it's an interesting season and it's an interesting election. It's an interesting election that personally, as a voter and as a U.S. citizen, I am not very comfortable with either candidate. I know a lot of people are going to be shocked to hear me say this, but I'm not very comfortable with either candidate here, as it was reflected in the debates that we saw. Personally, again, I would have loved to see a bigger challenge within the Democratic Party to come up with a candidate. And I also have to say that Vice President Kamala Harris far exceeded my expectations during the debate against Trump. I did not expect her to have such a tough spine, which she did. I did not expect her to be as articulate and as aggressive on the issues, which she was. So she moved me or moved somebody who was like me towards that column somewhat. Uh, on the issue of Trump, it was perplexing that on a presidential stage like that and on a global stage you would import facts like immigrants eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, which really portrayed the kind of things that the MAGA community believes about minorities and how they use these things to formulate their behavior towards minorities here. Now,
Master
when
Ghana, let me
somebody
come in there. Let me just bring some fun in there before you continue. Let me just bring some fun. You know, this whole cat issue is just fun for fun. In my wife's village, where you come from, and one bitter leaf. It's a delicacy. And I thought too that Americans are not interested in who eats chicken, who eats rats, who eats cat, and all of that. So it was really unpresidential. It wasn't. And like you're saying, let me cue you in. It tells us the mindset of the MAGA movement, what they think about minorities, immigrants, and the fact that Trump is and continuously will claim that undocumented people will be taking black jobs. So to Trump, a black job is a job, which is really an unfortunate thing. Please go ahead, Mr. Ghana.
yes, and I have the fortune to have. I mean, I came into this country into the Midwest, went to university college at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where I graduated from there. I went to law school again in the Midwest in Kansas City at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. While at the University of Nebraska, I was actually a member of a white fraternity there. People who are just like Trump, who think like Trump, and people who, I mean, I've gotten comfortable in my friendships with them. Uh, and so I kind of understand, and I have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters, and I understand how they feel. Now, I cannot say everything negative. I cannot say everything I think about Trump is negative there. Because Trump is somebody who has worked in the business community and understands business very well. And I'm going to give you an example, which I think a lot of people listening, if they didn't know, they might appreciate that. The fact that the infrastructure bill that President Joe Biden passed, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill which he passed, was actually Trump's idea. Trump was the one who put that bill together, but could not pass it through the United States House of Representatives. And when Biden came, he took that bill, dusted it off the shelf, and he passed it. And one of the rationales that Trump gave for coming up with that bill was that when he travels to Dubai, to Singapore, to China, to Saudi Arabia, he looks at their airports and their infrastructure is top notch. And we have American infrastructure falling apart. So he came up with the idea of that bill, but he could not get it passed. Biden got it passed. So, in terms of understanding the nomenclature of the business environment and optimizing the performance of American business, I think we should give Trump some plus there. However, the degree of racism, the degree of hatred towards minorities that
By some
exists.
you may want to work on your sound a little bit. Try to work on your environment. That is why I keep speaking. Go ahead, Mr. Ghana.
Yes. The degree of racism, the degree of hatred towards minorities that exist when somebody like Trump is in power. For example, we saw the open murder of George Floyd, the very blatant, aggressive, dehumanizing murder by a cop in Minneapolis. And a lot of incidents like that happened. And we have some of these MAGA racists that are out there, like the demonstration again in Charlottesville, that Trump said there were good people on both sides. So, and again, when you look at Project 25, what they are trying to do to change the constitution of the United States and to bring new arguments over certain issues, especially issues that have to do with relationships, you have to veer away from Trump a little bit. So, a few pluses in the Kamala column during the debate that happened, though I have to be cautious also, because there are some things that Kamala said that made me see her as running too much to the left. For example, when Kamala said part of her policy plans was to give people who are below a certain income $25,000 to put towards a down payment on a house, I found that to be too socialist. I found that to be too much to the left. Home ownership is supposed to be something that you work hard, you save money, and you put a down payment to buy that house. If you cannot put the down payment, there are rules where your family members can give you gifts to accumulate the down payment that you put towards the house. And I subscribe to the school of Margaret Thatcher that says wealth creation is more important than wealth distribution. Because if you focus too much on wealth distribution, there is precious little to distribute. So, and I think as we run towards November, my hope and prayer is that Kamala Harris is going to come closer to the center and stay there as she governs. But it was a good debate that upped Kamala Harris's potential to be elected as the president of the United States. And again, my hope and prayer, because I'm looking down 4 years. And again, I know I've taken a lot of time, but let me say just one more thing here. When we look at the election of a United States president, it is difficult to imagine what will happen after that president has been elected. Case in point, when we elected Bush 2 in 2001, or he took over power 2001, little did we know that 9 months later we're going to have September 11, and we're going to end up in two wars, both in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And the construct of Cheney's mind and Bush's mind affected how they prosecuted those wars. Now, when you fast forward 8 years later, after the real estate market crash, and you had the election of Obama here, you have to look at some great things that happened when Obama was ushered into power here. We had Obamacare, which was one of his biggest signature bills. But again, you have to look at some of the things that happened under Obama that we wish had not happened. That some people might have wished they had taken back his vote. If you look at the way the Obama led, it wasn't Obama who led it, but the French and Hillary Clinton pushed Obama to go bomb the crap out of Libya, kill its leader there, and allow anarchy to happen there, and allow arms to flow out of Libya into the Sahel, that ended up destabilizing Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and continues to destabilize those areas. If you look at the fact that through the election of Obama and the influence of Hillary, I'm telling some facts here. We send arms to Syria to help the opposition there. That has ended up destabilizing that country, allowing ISIS and Iran to fill the vacuum there. So if you look at those things, you can say, yes, we are for Kamala Harris, but very cautious about what comes after that. And either way you want to feel about gay marriage as well, you have to understand that the move by the federal government to stop defending marriage as something between a man and a woman, to defending marriage as a civil union between both homosexual and heterosexual couples out there, came under Obama. Now, I mean, either way you want to think about that, it's your opinion. But I'm looking at the debate and looking at the potential candidacies coming. I'm just kind of not very unequivocal about what is going to happen the next 4 years.
I think I appreciate that. But before I give the mic to Barrister Fru and Barrister Mbesia, definitely their own analysis will be important to conclude it. I want us to look at something that you just said, Barrister Ghana, in an interview after the debate. That's just going to take us about 2 minutes. We just
All good?
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Good. Awesome. Madam Vice President, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for
Good
your
to meet
time
you,
today.
Brian.
Our audience appreciates your time as
Of
well.
course.
As you know, we're sitting here in a state and arguably in front of an audience that 54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election.
Yeah.
You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans. At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. I wonder if we could drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, you know, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity, and that we as Americans have a beautiful character. You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business. My mother, you know, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small business owners. I learned who they are from my childhood, and she was a community leader. She hired locally. She mentored. Our small businesses are so much a part of the fabric of our communities, not to mention, really, I think, the backbone of America's economy. So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. But investing in people's innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it. Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage. And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. In addition, to help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally. And so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to just get in the door, and then they will do the work that they need to do to save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family. These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I admired.
Now, I brought in this excerpt of an exclusive interview she had just after the debate because of some of the things you said. You mentioned, I know you're a businessman, Barrister Ghana, and you're a successful businessman. Even in your endeavor of politics, the business can also influence your judgment and probably policy statement, if I should put it that way. But this is what I want us to look at. From a strategic perspective, Harris is looking at the middle class that really determines who gets to the White House to a great extent. And she wants to politically appeal them by saying that, hey, you're going to have the full involvement of government, not necessarily from a capitalist or an economist perspective, like you're putting it, to say that, okay, We don't want wealth distribution. We want wealth creation. That is economically correct. But at this time, when somebody's looking forward to get into the White House, can that earn you the vote for the middle class? So, Barrister Ghana, I know you would like to react to that, but I'll get back to you when the two barristers would have spoken. I'm coming out to you, Barrister Fu. You have been waiting for too long on this aspect.
Yeah, no,
You heard
yeah,
these other things.
I heard.
What do you?
I think Kamala Harris walked over Trump from the beginning of the debate. Just coming in, she occupied the stage because as a lady, Trump was supposed to meet her in the middle of the hall and give her a handshake before they go for the debate. She waited a few seconds for Trump. Trump was not forthcoming, was already on his desk, and she walked over and greeted him and introduced herself, Kamala Harris. From that moment on, she took over not only the issues, but the stage. She was talking to the American people. She articulated policy statements. What are we going to do? What am I going to do as the president? And you heard what Barrister Ghana said. Barrister Ghana took all her policy statements and, of course, as a good Republican, destroyed it. But let me say this. Trump did not as much as give a pronouncement for one policy speech, for one policy that he intends to carry out for the American people. When it came to Obamacare, he said, what did he say? I have a concept of a plan. Look, all this we're saying now, all this we're talking now is just intellectual exercise. But let me also make this statement. American foreign policy, which concerns us, does not change because the party or the president, a new president has been elected. Case in point, Ambazonia. Trump, when he came on, he suspended Cameroon from AGOA. He placed an arms embargo on Cameroon. And he deported a lot of Cameroonians and Ambazonians. That is Trump. When Biden came, he maintained the sanctions that Trump has put in place. What I'm trying to prove to us is that American foreign policy does not change just because some party or some other person has taken over. The way
But
Trump
you just
created,
that Trump will have
Ambazonia.
people. You're just saying here that Trump deported a lot of people, which means that the commander in chief can actually.
No. Listen to me now. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Trump came at the time that there was the Ambazonia crisis, the fight, and he suspended. He placed an embargo on Cameroon. He suspended Cameroon from AGOA, and on the other hand, he deported Cameroonians and Ambazonians back to Cameroon. That is Trump. Biden has come. He has maintained the arms embargo. He has not opened up AGOA for Cameroon. What I'm trying to prove is that American foreign policy does not change just because there's a new president. America, there's one thing that America does not change frequently is American foreign policy. They go with what is on the ground, what my predecessor did, how can I deal on it, or can I adjust it? But American foreign policy remains constant. And I'm saying this, Kamala Harris is going to make a very, very positive, is going to be a very, very positive president for the United States. For the first time for the first time in history, This country, I'm not an American citizen, so but I watch. For the first time, Americans are going to elect a woman as as the president of the United States, and I don't see her changing foreign policy as was started by Trump. It was taken over by Biden, and it may happen that events will make her or her administration see Ambazonia from a different perspective. Having said that, the threat that the Russians are bringing into the Gulf of Guinea and in Africa, starting with Comoros and other and Gabon and so on, and of course Central African Republic and so on, is making the American foreign policy vis-a-vis Ambazonia shifting. It is shifting. It is shifting, and it may shift during the time of Kamala Harris because of events taking place on that continent. They have they have an interest, but La République du Cameroon has done something that is very, very detrimental to us. La République du Cameroon has shared the Gulf of Guinea to all the major powers of the world: China, France, Great Britain, and America. They all have an interest in the Gulf of Guinea. And as long as La Republic is letting them have our natural resources and stealing them with impunity, they don't have any reason to shift. But as I said, the only thing that will make them shift is the presence of the Russians at the corner. And it is very, very real. And La Republique de Cameroon is leaning towards the Russians as we speak. That is my take.
That was quite instrumental there. One thing I'd want to add to what you would have said before giving the mic to Barrister Besia, we'll definitely be coming back to Barrister Ghana to react, is the fact that we debated here, we had this discussion with you, Barrister Besia, and you elaborated on it a lot. How reports have it that the deportations that were effectuated by Trump, where some of it was reversed by Biden,
Biden.
which we thought that was good, because you cannot be deporting people into an autocratic system with all the facts of Cameroon frying babies in palm oil, and for whatever reason you have people in the United States of America begging for international protection, and for some reason, because of MAGAs, that thing that they don't want a lot of blacks, they will just have to
Yeah,
deport them.
yeah. Let me clarify something.
Yeah,
Biden did not only reverse that violation of international law, because Cameroon is at war, as recognized by all these powers. They know that Cameroon is at war, and if people are running into the United States, the convention that was signed by the powers, by everybody in the world in
non-refoulement.
1951, non-refoulement, Trump violated it. So Biden now wanted to correct it. Number two, Biden is passing through Congress now. There is a bill in Congress talking about humanitarian parole. In addition to the TPS Biden has already put in place. The TPS means anybody running away from Cameroon, you come to America, you just enter, and they give you a work permit, they give you a driver's license, and so on. But you have 18 months renewable until the war finishes. That is what Biden has added. And I'm telling you, I like to argue that American foreign policy does not shift
No,
drastically just because.
that point has been taken and well articulated. So, by Sambesia, I'm handing the mic to you now. So much you definitely have to say there. Commander Elvis is at the
Yes,
back waiting to talk about the lockdown, and that's where we'll be concluding tonight's discussion. So, talk to us, Barry Sambesia.
yes. These are two things. I think three things important here. The first thing is that We Ambazonians who are American citizens, all of us are not going to vote one way or the other. Some will vote Republican, others will vote Democrats. So the campaign has shown there, whether it is Trump or Harris, are meant to cajole the domestic voters to vote for them. The second thing I know is that come January 2025, someone was sitting at the White House in Washington, D.C. That person might be Kamala or Donald Trump. And so either way, we'll get one of them sitting there. The third thing I would go further to analyze is that exactly what Barasanso has said. We are very lucky. This Ambazonian story, what we're talking on ABC, this Ambazonia, it has gone through two different American administrations for 8 years, therefore 4 years. It has gone through administrations. Luckily, I've gone through the Republicans under Trump. It has gone through Democrats through Biden. So we have tasted, where the policies change or not, we have tasted American policies under Trump, the Republican, and under Biden, the Democrats. So what does Ambazonia take out of this? Just to expatiate on what Mr. Sanso has said. When this thing started in 2016, that is when Trump was elected as the president. When he got there, he did what we have heard. He punished Cameroon. But in addition to that, he put out a policy which is very important, which we have been repeating every day. Go to the conference table without precondition and address the root causes of the problem. That's the American foreign policy on that issue. Because Mr. Biden did not change it. He maintained that policy. And again, maybe Mr. So forgotten. Trump did something very extraordinary, which really happened. He helped organize an informal meeting of the Security Council purely on this issue. And then fast forward, when Biden came in, he did all what we have heard. So there's a continuation. The issue for us is this. Come January, after January, when whoever sits in the office, if you or me has to go to the White House to talk Ambazonia, what shall we be telling President Trump or President Kamala? What is our saying? What are we going to be telling them as far as this problem is concerned? For me, the emphasis will be one. Mr. President Trump, this thing he said 8 years ago and you have left, is not yet gone. Madam Kamala, this thing who said 4 years ago is still hanging there. Yeah, and they have not come to the conference table. We have not been able to negotiate a way out. And this then take us to our earlier analysis. We were talking about United Nations resolutions, General Assembly resolution, and I put out there deliberately the theme for this year under Mr. Spilman Young. The theme includes, if you just permit to quote that section, includes the development of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity. That is the United
Yeah.
Nations Assembly right now, where the United States, be it under Trump or be it under Kamala, is going to be sitting right there. This is the current position of the United Nations General Assembly. So we'll be telling them, whoever is sitting there, Madam President or Mr. President, you did this, it did not work. It is still now right in the United Nations that has brought us into this trouble. Help us implement this thing, even officially, as put out by the United Nations General Assembly. Help us enforce the policy you put back in 2016. Help us, Madam Harris. Help us what you inherited. Yes, you did not deport people. You tried to bring some of them back. But Mr. Trump, if you're the one, even Trump, if you believe that people eat cats and dogs, we don't care about that. Because there's no way that you're going to find 10,000 Ambazonians sitting at the gates to come and eat your dogs or eat your pets. Those who so that should not be your concern as far as Ambazonians is concerned. If you fear that they can eat your pets and dogs, that fear may be genuine. to help them remain in their country by helping for them to settle back home so they might not come back here to eat your dogs and your pets. I'm an American citizen. I vote. This debate is not what you and me is having here. It's not going to alter where I put my vote. I don't need to say it here. But again, as a that is a lesson that we learn from this thing. The foreign policy we have tested both ways. The Democrats were tested the Republicans, which, as far as Ambazonia is concerned, is continuous. It's one. So our debate here and going forward should be how best do we benefit from it? Because come January, one or the other will be there. The policy will still have remained intact. That's my contribution to that topic. Over to you.
That's amazing. And that's where I'm bringing Barrister Ghana to so that we can conclude that. As you can see on the screen, Commander Evis for Defense is here. Right after that, we're going to be looking at Ambazonia that has been locked down, and that will be done very briefly. Ambazonia that has been locked down for at least a week already, as the preliminary sessions of the UNGA 70th uh, 70th preliminary sessions begins. What's the significance? What's the objective of the lockdown? Why is it ending now? What do we anticipate? All of these questions will be answered. But first, Barrister Ghana, you may want to crown this subject as it concerns or pertains to Amazonia vis-a-vis UN, US foreign policy and other things of great concern. Please crown this particular segment of our discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Paddy, and thanks to my senior colleagues who have stated some very strong views, and most of them have been right in what they've said. However, I want to present just a little bit of a different angle, and I want to present that angle first by giving some examples. If we look at some of the three recent African countries that have had independence, we look at the case of South Sudan, we look at the case of Namibia, we look at the case of South Africa that got its freedom under apartheid. I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but all of those three countries had those transitions under Republican administrations. And that is something that we should not lose sight of. When it comes to the policies of Republican administrations towards Africa, we cannot lose sight of the fact that Republicans are less eager to act in consonance with European powers when it comes to Africa than Democrats. Democrats cede a lot of ground to European powers, and they give European powers a lot of say as to what happened in Africa during the colonial days, or to act in tandem with Africans' colonial history. I'll give you one strong case in point. The Suez Canal in Egypt. When Egypt seized, when Egypt seized the Suez Canal from France and England, and the French and the English were on their way to attack Egypt, it was an American a head of state who called the French and the English to say, back off. The Suez Canal belongs to Egypt, and you guys are not going to go to war to seize what belongs to Egypt. Again, if you look at the case of South Africa, it was under an American administration, Bush 1, where Mandela was free. Again, you look at the case of Namibia, it was under an American administration through whereby Namibia gained its independence. If you look at the case of Zimbabwe, even Zimbabwe gained its independence in 1980, and that was when Ronald Reagan came to power. Now, Barrister Mbesa, you work with the United Nations in the Ivory Coast, and during that whole debacle in the Ivory Coast, where Obama and the Democrats were in power, the Obama and the Democrats ceded a lot of ground to the French to do whatever they wanted to do with that transition in the Ivory Coast, which Republican administrations, I think, would not have been as inclined to cede a lot of ground to the French as the Democrats did. Now, I want to look at how Ambazonia was under Trump compared to how it was under the Biden administration that came under that. As you rightly stated, Barrister Funso, the Trump administration banned or restricted arms shipments to Cameroon. But Trump's ambassador, or the American ambassador to Yaoundé under Trump, Peter Ballerin, was more forthright in confronting the Cameroon government regarding the genocides that were happening in Ambazonia. And he publicly, numerous times, described what was happening in Ambazonia as a genocide, which the Biden administration has not been very inclined to do so. Also, under the Biden administration, Bia, a butcher with blood on his hands, was welcomed into the White House, something that I think would not have been very possible under Trump. Now we have to look at the good that has happened under the Biden administration, which some of you guys have articulated. For example, the passing of TPS and some of those congressional bills that have happened documenting what has happened in Ambazonia and prescribing the negotiation table as where it needs to happen. Now, the fact that Biden has been able, the Biden administration or Congress under the Biden administration has been able to pass TPS, either it's Kamala or Trump that comes into the White House, is going to be a strong tool for Ambazonia because they cannot reverse TPS unless the situation that is happening on the ground has been solved. That is why we as Ambazonians need to contribute and keep the fight on the ground, because as long as that fight stays on the ground, there would be no case to reverse TPS. Now, I'm going to end with one note, and a lot of people are not going to like me saying this, but I'm going to say it. If you look at the war in Ukraine that is happening, part of American power that helps to determine global affairs or global politics is the use of deterrence. If you look at Putin, having seized over the Crimea in 2014, that was done under Obama, a Democrat. And part of the reason was because Obama was not forthright in using the power of deterrence in war politics out there. Even Obama was caught on a hot mic prior to the election in 2012, telling Putin that he was going to give Putin some leeway after the elections. And what did we see after the 2012 elections? Putin moved in to seize the Crimea there and foment a lot of trouble in the Donbass area that
Good
has
Republican.
ultimately between Putin and Russia. So we have to be very, and that's why I say I'm uneasy about the next 4 years, because my vote might come down to Kamala. But let's see how the next 4 years unfold. So I just wanted to highlight those points to say, great debate that happened. Thumbs up to Kamala for taking Trump to the cleaner and whooping his butt on facts. But I hope she stays a strong U.S. leader if she gets elected, and I hope she uses the power of deterrence to keep the world from blowing up. So
That's amazing. That was a great contribution right there. And we
Just one
can
thing. Just
that,
one
um,
correction. One
Barrister,
correction.
about
No.
everything
Just
else.
one sentence. One
Please,
sentence.
yes, go ahead.
Yes. My dear colleague, Barrister Ghana, you forgot about South Africa. The Democrats control the Senate and the House, and the foreign secretary, what you call the Secretary of State, Schultz, was a Republican, was the Republican in the White House. You saw what Biden did in the debate leading up to the killing of apartheid in South Africa. That wasn't under that was done by Democrats in the legislative branch of government. You saw
That,
what Biden said. Biden at that time was the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. You saw it, Barrister Ghana, and you cannot ignore that and think that just because apartheid finished under a Republican, the Republicans were the ones who brought about that change. The Republicans, Secretary of
that's
State,
where it's started.
were talking against the ANC.
The
but
point here in the balance of this conversation.
I totally agree. I totally agree that Republicans at that time, Cheney was a congressman at that time. Even Cheney was against the freedom of Nelson Mandela. I totally concur with that. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to using United States power to change the status of, of situations around the world, the Republicans are more willing to do that in disregard of what the European powers think. That is the point I'm making.